Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing not only Bitcoin, but primarily the stock market and the global economy, as the news, you will probably know by now, has ravaged our economy. And over the last couple of months, the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and pretty much every stock index on the planet has taken a massive nosedive. As you can see, the last month has not been kind to our major stock indices, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing the recent little bounce that we've seen in the Dow Jones and in the S&P. We've even seen the start of some form of recovery on gold, so we're going to be diving into all of that and more in today's video. By the time you walk away from this video, I have a feeling you're going to have a much better understanding of these markets and where they are going, so I would encourage you to continue watching until the end. But without much further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. This is the Crypto Jeb channel. I suppose we should start with some cryptocurrency before we dive on into the stock market. So let's go ahead and look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been putting in a nice little bounce here over the last week and a half or so, ever since, the apocalypse happened back on the 12th of March. We have been slowly but surely trending to the upside. The problem with this, as I've talked about in many videos, so I will be brief here, is that Bitcoin is in what you would consider a bear flag. These kind of recoveries, because they are so drawn out and we still haven't rallied back up to where we started, many times these are actually going to result in a bearish breakout and continued movement to the downside. If that were to happen, one, everybody in short positions is going to be freaking rich. You're going to make so much money if you short that, because that's a big move. But two, is probably going to result in Bitcoin pulling back to the 200 weekly SMA that we've talked about so much, and we very well may break it. That's sitting at $5,500. I want to see $5,500 to $5,600 be our floor, but I certainly can't guarantee that with how much bearishness there is, not only in crypto, but in the rest of the world right now. Looking at the rest of the cryptocurrency markets, we can see that they're looking pretty neutral. We have some gainers and losers, but for the vast majority of cryptocurrencies, they have not moved very much. I will tell you something, the market capitalization on some of these cryptocurrencies is lower than I have seen in a very long time, and every single one of these that I'm interested in investing in for the long term looks like a great entry position right now and over the next couple of months as this crisis continues to draw on. I'm definitely going to be getting my grubby little paws on some more Ethereum here in a little while, but I have a feeling we're going to correct even lower, so I'm not doing it just yet. Speaking of Ethereum, let's touch on that for just a second. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these chart formations because we don't need them anymore. This was the rally that we were talking about a few weeks ago with Ethereum rallying and rallying and rallying, and we thought that was a giant rally. And then this happened. Ethereum, at its peak, it pulled back 67%. And from its local high, Ethereum is still down 50%. I'd like to point something out, though. Ethereum rallied to $290 in a very neutral pre-bull market phase. During a bull market, Ethereum rallied to $1,500 over 2 years ago. We're sitting at less than a tenth of that. What's to say that right now is not a good investment position for the very long term? If you're thinking about holding Ethereum for the next 5 to 10 years, if you think it is a good hold, it's a good project, and they have good fundamentals, why wouldn't you be buying Ethereum right now? I'm not going to tell you to buy Ethereum right now, but I want you asking yourself that question so you can come to an informed conclusion on your own. Moving right along here, guys, though, let's go ahead and jump on over to the stock market. I'm going to take a slightly different route than normal, and we're going to start with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. If you guys don't analyze stock markets very often, I'm going to be very brief in some of the things that you want to be watching out for. One of them would most certainly be this moving average right here, the 200 weekly SMA. Just in the same way that it's very important on Bitcoin, it is paramount on stock markets. As you can see, for the last 10 years until about a week ago, the Dow Jones Industrial Average and many other major stock indexes in America had never, for 10 years, fallen below that level. Now realize, you're looking at 25 years of stock market history here. This is not a small period of the market. In 2010, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rejected from there. We broke through it. We got support on it on the 15th of August, 2011, and we went on a rally. We did test it back over here during the election phase, and then we almost tested it right here. But something I want you guys to note is that if we look at the entire market here, going back to 1980, I'm going to move over here for a second so you can see it. Every single time this century that the Dow Jones fell below the 200 weekly SMA was right there and right there. Those are the only two times it happened. And in those times, something interesting happened. The market at least tested that moving average before it fell below it. Contrast that to what we're seeing now, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, along with the S&P and many of the major stock indexes, fell straight through the 200 weekly SMA. They didn't even stop for gas. They didn't do any of that. They just fell straight through it. And that's an important thing to note, because that's both a good and a bad thing. Actually, it's a good thing because, quite frankly, the stock market, as far as I'm aware, has just about never pulled back 30 to 40% in the span of 2 weeks. That just doesn't happen. Now, don't get me wrong. What's going on right now? It's the biggest crisis in just about every single industry on the entire planet. The airline industry is a big example of that. Oil is another big example of that. We're looking at multi-trillion-dollar industries being hit around the globe. So it does make sense that the entire global economy and the stock market would correct that quickly. But the fact that we fell below that moving average that quickly indicates to me that a lot of people working in the stock market are going to be expecting a bounce to move back up above that level, and then as this crisis drags on, we'll probably fall back below it. That'll look like this. Now, I might be wrong on this, guys. There is plenty of reason to believe that I'm wrong on this. Being below the 200 weekly SMA on the DJI and the S&P is a very bearish thing, but notice this large green candlestick that we've seen here in March, now that everybody has digested the news of what's going on and people have calmed down just a little bit. We have put in a pretty big green candlestick. In fact, probably one of the biggest green candlesticks that the Dow Jones has seen in a very long time. That's a 12% green weekly candlestick, and it's only Wednesday, my dudes. This is a very important bounce, and I want to see this bounce continue, and I want to see it continue above the 200 weekly SMA, and quite frankly, it very well may. I don't want to get your hopes up, but it's something that could happen. That all being said, I think it's important for all of us to understand that as much as many of us would like to believe that this is going to be over in the next month or two, I hope it will be, but I don't think it will be. I've studied the numbers very, very closely. I can recite all of them to you if you want me to. I understand what's going on here. I've done the research because I want to make sure that I'm informed but not anxious and prepared but not panicking, and that's exactly what I am. The good news is it looks like Italy hit their inflection point on the 22nd of March, which means that if we're 2 to 3 weeks behind Italy, we have 2 to 3 more weeks of ramping up numbers, and quite frankly, we're a much larger country with a much slower response than what Italy has put into place so far. So who even knows if 2 or 3 weeks will be long enough. The point of all of that is not to scare you. The point of all this is to remind you that markets are in a major correction right now for a fundamental reason. It has nothing to do with technicals, okay? Technicals would not have predicted this. The news would have predicted this, and it did. I see a continued bounce in the stock market for the next few days, maybe even a week. But you also have to remember where the epicenter of this is. Wall Street. I mean, literally, where Wall Street is. It's in New York City. That's that is the hardest hit place in the entire country. And quite frankly, it's turning into one of the hardest hit places in the entire world right now. I understand that it's not 1950 anymore, and the New York Stock Exchange building isn't the most important part, but it is a very crucial part of our entire stock market. And considering there has been a declared natural disaster there, it's going to be hard for, you know where I'm going with this. The point I'm trying to make in this video is that the stock market and Bitcoin looks like it's trying to bounce right now, and I'm very happy about that. There's a lot of optimists out there, but I'm not convinced that this is all over. I think we're all heading lower, and I think we're going to head a decent amount lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average I'm looking at on my screen right now pulled back to 18,000 points. The SPY pulled back to 218. Those are the kind of numbers that we had not seen in about 3 or 4 years. And I think that in time we are going to pull back to those again. So there is potential to make money on this bounce that we're putting in right now, but remember, you want to be careful betting against the trend because the trend is your friend until it ends. And right now, this trend is being almost entirely driven by the news and by the response to that news. And the trend of the news and its response is not stopping anytime soon. Give it a month or two and that may change, but for now, we live in a new world. I was watching a video yesterday and the commentator talked about how what's going on right now it's almost similar to 9/11 in that when it happened, you knew where you were. You knew where you were before it happened, you knew what the world was like before it happened, and once it's over, the world will never be the same. And guys, I'm here to tell you that when this is over, a lot of changes are going to be made around the world because every single country just got shaken to its foundation. But the good news is those changes, I think, are going to be for the good. This could have been much worse. It could have been much worse, and it still might be. We don't know. But I think if we look at that as a good thing and we look at that as a way for us to actually, learn and, put in place plans and protocols that'll stop this kind of thing from happening in the future, then we can be much more prepared if something like this that is even worse ever happens again, both mentally and as far as our infrastructure. So guys, that is going to wrap it out for today's video. I do hope you did enjoy today's video, and I hope you're keeping a happy face on. It is now day 2 of my quarantine, and I am running out of coffee. So I'm going to venture out into the big bad world out there, and I'm going to go get myself some coffee because no virus ain't going to stop me from drinking my coffee every morning. This is going to be one of my last cups because I'm running out. It's bad. Send me coffee, please. Help. You know, funny story before we wrap out. For the longest time, you guys would always say, Jeb, you need to drink decaf. You drink too much coffee. And when you guys were saying that, I didn't drink coffee. In fact, I hated coffee. And then I started drinking coffee, and you guys stopped telling me that because, I don't know. Either way, love you guys. Gonna be a good year no matter what happens. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun, especially come this summer. But guys, like I said, that is going to wrap it out for today's video. Before I go though, I do first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching. As always, God, I love saying that. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.